Hi everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K Laidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
This week's podcast is about being done with being a doormat. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce, says Tony Gaskins. So what do I mean about being a doormat? A doormat is a person which, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, defines as a person who accepts being treated badly and does not complain. You know when you hear yourself say, "I've worked extra unpaid hours for my boss who didn't even say thanks. I cleaned, I ironed, I cooked, I've not stopped all day, I did backflips and somersaults to make you happy," but you don't appreciate it all. Why isn't it ever enough? Here are some other signs and behaviours associated with being what I refer to as a doormat. Excessive people-pleasing. A doormat may go to great lengths to please others, often at the expense of her own needs and desires. She may agree to do things she doesn't want to do or sacrifice her own goals to make others happy. Difficulty saying no. Doormats often struggle to assert themselves and say no when they should. They may fear conflict or rejection and may agree to requests or demands by others even when it is inconvenient to them or hurts them. Low self-esteem. A lack of self-confidence and self-worth is common amongst women who end up feeling like a doormat. She may not believe she deserves better treatment or may have a very low or negative self-image. Avoiding confrontation. Doormats often avoid confrontations and the difficult conversations to share her feelings, even when they are necessary. Women may suppress their own feelings and concerns just to keep the peace. Or over-apologising. Doormats tend to say sorry and apologise excessively, even for things that aren't their fault. They may feel responsible for problems or conflicts that aren't even their own. Ignoring boundaries. Some women might allow others to overstep her personal boundaries without setting very clear limits. This can come about through lack of awareness of knowing that actually boundaries are important and may lead to others taking advantage of them. Feeling guilty and shame. Doormats often experience guilt and shame when they try to prioritise their own needs or attempt to assert themselves with a tense or toxic person. They may worry about disappointing or hurting others. Resentment. Over time, doormats may build up natural feelings of resentment towards those they feel have taken advantage of them or have not reciprocated their kindness. It's important to note that obviously being empathetic, helpful and considerate of others' needs is generally positive. However, when these traits are taken out of balance and to an extreme level, it results in a woman neglecting her own well-being and self-respect, which in turn can lead to an internal perception of feeling invisible, unimportant and like a doormat. On every healing journey, it's essential for women with endometriosis to find balance between helping others and identifying, establishing and maintaining their own personal boundaries, and of course self-esteem, which ultimately lead them to a healthy and fulfilling life and body. One cannot heal her body, however, fully if emotionally she's fully focused outwards towards others and ignores her own parts, emotions and basic needs, just like eating little and often, journaling, good sleep, rest, relaxation, to name a few. I remember a time when I made a vow with myself that I would only help another person if I did something to help myself first. That was a big challenge for me at this point, and a whirlwind of emotions used to consume me at the start of my endometriosis journey. You see, I was a chronic people pleaser. But as I left my 50s over 5 years ago, I realised more and more the indoctrination and conditioning that I'd had from a young age to put every other single human, ahead of me than myself. I was more concerned about another's feelings more than I was of my own feelings. In fact, I almost took pride in that. I took pride in being able to predict and anticipate another's need ahead of my own. In fact, I barely even knew what my own needs were. I took pride in swooping in to rescue another person, whether they'd asked me to do so or not. But that was then. Over my healing journey, I would be the one to wrestle with the concept of embracing my emotions and stopping long enough to listen to them, or even just observe them. Emotions were those things that irritated and frightened me in equal measure. I would become reactive to my emotions and put my full focus outwards, to my physical cost. I got to the point prior to falling deathly ill in 2011 that I literally could not sit still for a moment. I was constantly active, like a cat in a hot tin roof or a blue bottle fly bouncing around a room, in and around my work and my home. I would take on more and more projects and refurbishments of properties and caretaking of others and increasing my business until my body threw me to the ground in a ground-halting pain and literally said, "Stop, Wendy, this has to change." But the constant activity then, I recognise now, was a huge act of desire to get it right, be perfect, and keep others happy and not stop until I surpassed even my own expectations. To perpetually please and placate. To be a perfect person in all aspects that those around me would be happy with, and then maybe I would be happy. But I look back and reread my old journals now, and I see how miserable I was. It was not until one poignant moment with an ex-partner, when he was at the dinner table and he snapped at me in front of my children, that I said, enough. His tone and comments were nastier and sharper than if he had been speaking to our dog. His caustic words cut through me like a knife and gave a message to my daughter, "That's how you should expect to be treated by a man." And to my son, "That's how you should expect to treat a woman." That was a watershed moment for me, and when my young son said, "Mum, why does he treat you like a Roman?" an innocent young boy's interpretation of a slave, worthless person, aka a doormat, it really shocked me. It shocked me into waking up. It shocked me into daring to question my beliefs, old internal stories and conditioning, that I would allow that type of behaviour to be acceptable in front of my children. It shocked me that I was trying so hard that I could hardly breathe. I was in constant pain and had no joy in my life then. I had spent years of my life as a doormat, a silent observer of my own existence, allowing others to tread all over my dreams, my desires, and my very sense of self. The metaphorical doormat of my own life, I had willingly allowed people to wipe their problems, their demands, and their indifferences on me without ever knowing it was okay to raise a voice in protest. That's indoctrination and conditioning for you. Back then I had no awareness of the 5 Ps, aka the poisons: produce, products, property, people and past, and how they interlinked together and affected my health. I was oblivious to that. Yes, obviously a part of me understood the produce oblique food and the products and their impact on my body as well as property. But understanding people and past was something I felt huge resistance and avoidance to doing until my body went on strike and I was forced to be bedbound for years, wrestling with my mind, my emotions and myself. It is interesting when one is physically forced through pain to make change. That tends to be the way for women with endometriosis when they reach out to me and my team for the personalised support. It is a challenging journey becoming an endoboss. I always say that. But of course, it can be done with the right information, education and expert support. And to be clear, an endoboss is a woman who has not only become a boss of her endometriosis, i.e. understands her emotions and her body and how they interlink so well that she realises the power she has over it and is no longer scared of herself, her emotions or her body, but finds the voice to question what she did not know needed to be questioned before. Or perhaps was too scared to dare to question. That was me before. Oprah Winfrey says, "You get in life what you have the courage to ask for." I didn't know it was okay to even ask. And even if I did ask, I wouldn't have known what to ask for. I was born with a strong spirit, but also a strong desire to please. So I would feel the oscillating back and forth of wanting to hide, wanting to shine, wanting to please, and wanting to be happy. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry's wife, famously said years ago, "Women don't need to find their voice. They have a voice, but they need to feel empowered to use it, and people need to be encouraged to hear it." As you can imagine, in the UK, there are widely opposing positions about the like or dislike of her, even if that comes from people who know very little or have taken the time even to understand her or Harry on their documentary, etc. But when you look at Meghan's story, it is intriguing. At a very young, tender age of 11 years old, she had the voice in which to write to Procter & Gamble, a large manufacturing company, about their sexist washing up liquid advert, which only depicted a woman in the kitchen. And amazingly, she got them to change their advert to be more gender neutral. At 11 years old. Therefore, it is no wonder that when she first started dating one of our royal family, there was much excitement about fresh energy coming in and some modernisation and updating an outdated sexist establishment. Whether we all like it or not, we are all influenced from many factors, and when her quote about women's voices was first publicised, I know many women received it like a breath of fresh air. I know I did. Yet the old establishment, mainly male, and within the palace walls and beyond, were rumoured to be horrified. How dare a woman have a voice? Who does she think she is? She's an upstart. She's a woman and she should do as she is told. She should sit pretty, be quiet, and do not cause a fuss. Do these statements sound familiar? That was what I heard many's a time in my life. Of course, Meghan Markle was going to ruffle feathers. At her age, at 11 years old, she was speaking up. She grew up in a culture, environment and country that encourages an attitude of anything is possible and everyone is free. The land of the free. The land of opportunity. The land of progression. But in the UK, it is the land of the establishment who appear to fear and actively resist change. Meghan brought in an air of change, and that upset many. The concept of women having equal rights horrified the military minds who run the inner workings and the behind the scenes of Buckingham Palace and royal family, which many people aren't aware of. I know this because I used to be married to a military man, and know all too well how I was once shamed for wanting to keep my surname and daring to continue to sit at a dinner table at the end of a meal when it was customary for other women to be banished to another room whilst the men had their port and cigars. I was shocked. It felt like a step back into archaic times. I wondered if it was even a joke. It shocked me how women were treated as second-class citizens by some and regarded worse than their dogs. Women in that environment were expected to be on call and always available no matter the time of day or night. Some women were expected to be a good wife, in inverted commas, and a good mother, and considered selfish for considering themselves in any way, shape or form. I know some women ended up feeling like a mistress in their relationship as their husbands felt married to the military and the military was their wife. But to have a voice and challenge the narrative, that was blasphemy. To have others hear it, well, that was just being an irritating woman. To dare to question or be progressive, well, that was just being viewed as an upstart or being difficult. I cannot imagine how Meghan, who was a very successful actress with a burgeoning career, an abundance of vocal opinions and personal freedom, gave that up for love, yet would go on to imprison and entrench herself into one of the oldest and restrictive establishments in the world. No wonder, in time, they would be forced to choose to leave it. As I loosely watched their situation with interest unfold over many years, for me it represented and clarified what I felt I'd been fighting secretly for decades in my family and with other close male relationships. It was never apparently obvious at that time, but deeply embedded in the culture and unconscious. The message was clear. Stay small, Wendy. Be quiet, Wendy. And do as you're told, Wendy. It was clear. Be a doormat and be accepted by the mainly male establishment and media and, of course, medical establishment as a good girl, or be vilified for daring to question, be curious and have a voice. What angered me the most was how Meghan and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, were pitched against each other. Ultimately, They're two modern women trying to do the best they can in a highly judgmental world which was trying to pick at every element of them and pull them apart. Of course, they succeeded. Whilst Megan escaped with her life to the USA and to have a place to use her voice again and be herself, Catherine grew increasingly thin and would end up in hospital just recently under the pressure. I can't imagine what it's like to have the world's eyes on you the whole time and people sitting in judgment, waiting to criticise. It is not a life for anyone or for any person's body. Hence why I guess her body has screamed out in pain and need of personal attention. And as I write this, she is in hospital for 2 weeks. But both of these women are highly public figures who have very apparently tried to please and appease and be perfect in different ways. Yet they have both suffered. They were and are still being persecuted. They have been high-profile doormats of sorts. And where has that got them? I would not swap my life for theirs for all the treasure at the bottom of the rainbow, or all the tea in China. My belief is that the secret to life is about balance. The secret to balance is awareness, and the secret of awareness is, of course, journaling and meditation. And this is where one's true voice, the voice of a woman, is finally heard. It has always been there, but either hidden in the shadows or too fearful to be heard. When we look at the societal norms of the sexes, it is deeply entrenched in many societies in the Western world for women to be the caretakers and selfless souls for others. Now, obviously, there is a real need, a natural need for women to be that caring way for children. Children need their mothers in the early stages or caretakers for survival, and a self-focused, selfish mother is damaging and dangerous to the mental, emotional and physical developmental health of her child. But equally, in the other end of the spectrum, a mother that gives out all of herself all of the time, totally to her children, at the expense of herself, is damaging to her own health mentally, emotionally and physically. And ironically, the child picks up on that as well. It's all about balance. So how to identify, establish and maintain balance? As I've mentioned before, it is in my opinion that delicate daily dance between caring of yourself, aka you can't give from an empty cup analogy, and caring for others. That is the perfect focus for a healthy, nurturing woman and society at large. Yet, in our fast-paced modern societies, women are often thrust into the fast lanes of chronic and relentless work schedules, as well as extreme caretaking of others at the expense of herself. Many women have not been taught by their female relatives any healthy, balanced examples of taking essential care and time for themselves, and having their cup so overflowing that it becomes a joy to care, share and give to others. Sadly, our culture here in the UK is laced with women being only good enough for the kitchen and bedroom, I heard one man saying to me, for being vehicles and not individuals with their own needs, and shamed for daring to think about themselves. It does make me laugh that women are expected to be the one in the kitchen within the home, yet in restaurant kitchens it is the men that are the majority and take pride of place and are celebrated as being master chefs. Women should stay behind the scenes, barefoot and pregnant, and change the kitchen sink, was what one deluded man said to me once. My mouth gaping open, going, sorry? When a woman dares to speak up and out, she's called all sorts of foul names and encouraged to stay small, quiet and pretty in the corner. Then if you do decide one day to stop being a doormat for everybody else's feelings, worries, upsets and bad treatment, you might be shot down and accused of being selfish. Damned either way with others, but this is your life. And it has to change. The women I know and we work with tend to have inbuilt well-meaning tendencies which are more predisposed towards helping others and do not know it's okay to turn some of that focus inwards to help themselves, especially when it comes to healing. This is why I talk about emotions and embracing them and empowerment so much in my podcasts. As best-selling author Hiral Hagda said, that tiny voice you hear in your spirit is the path to embark on. This path has been laid out to slingshot you to your unbelievable destiny. If you will only make the time and take the time to hear it. And that is where the act of journaling as you wake up every morning is key, to record, document and hear the voice for your Endometriosis journey. It's really important that you learn to hear your voice, not others that have been projected onto you. And it's the only way to slowly unpick what is truly you and others that have been put upon you. Recently, the outgrowth of my old doormat tendencies came to light again and reached another level of letting go. I have recognised that the people-pleasing and appeasing was a background operating system set up at a very young age and reinforced by my grandmothers who were born before their time. Both worked tirelessly to help and please everyone and everything around them. Yet to those they helped, it was never enough, and they were never enough. That judgment and dissatisfaction wore heavily on them in their later years when they struggled to be seen or heard as the world also tried to change around them. My dearest maternal grandmother laid the ground for my mother to experiment with her voice in the 1960s. However, my mother would wrestle with wishing to use her voice as a singer and would end up in a highly successful pop band that appeared on TV. Yet that came to a grinding halt when the old societal medical system and conditioning forced her to have a child she didn't want earlier than she wanted. AKA, the gynecological field at the time believed that having a child would help her endometriosis, which of course we all know now doesn't. But it also forced her to give up her voice. Although my mother was never a doormat, to be fair, she turned others into being a doormat for her. It was an educational process to observe her manipulative and controlling behaviour and to psychologically turn others into nervous, anxious people pleasers right in front of her eyes and for her to verbally dump upon them. And that was when I got my early training of being a high-level doormat to keep the peace and please everyone around me. One of my earliest memories is if my mum was saying she was in a bad mood. And I would think, if Mum was in a bad mood yesterday, then I'll make sure that she's in a good mood today. Again, a lot of youthful innocence in anticipating that one could impact another's mood. But I would anticipate what she'd needed and wanted ahead of her knowing it herself. This was a task that I was very proud of. By the tender age of 12 years old, I would ensure that the exact right quantity of milk was poured into her teacup as I delivered her breakfast tea to her room each morning. Failure to do so meant great trouble for younger me. I would only learn to be agreeable, passive and appeasing. Anything other than that meant trouble. Big trouble. I recall my aunt one time in a restaurant sitting next to my mother, both of them opposite me, and her saying, "Oh, you're going to have trouble with that one, Kathy," directing her chin and eyes spitefully over to me across the table. The message was clear. Do not speak up in any way. Do not be seen. Do not be heard. Be quiet. Be a good girl and become a well-worn doormat, even to the other women in the family. Don't dare have a voice. Don't dare to question or query. Don't upset the well-worn established apple cart. Don't dare to defend against mistreatment. Don't dare to have emotions that might upset them. And don't dare to call out an injustice. Just be at the beck and call of others, but ignore your own inner voice. AKA, be a doormat. Don't value yourself, your feelings or your body. So why do I share all of this with you today? Because far too many lovely and beautifully sensitive women with endometriosis may be unaware that they have become a doormat in their relationships, and what started out as a kind or helpful deed or gesture has now been taken for granted, and that they are left feeling unappreciated. Parts of them may be aching inside. Parts of them may be overwhelmed, shamed, and feel blamed for not being good enough. But today, if you relate to any of this, I want to tell you that you are. If you've read my book and are listening to this podcast and are taking the necessary steps that you need to do every day with swapping out any of the 5 Ps and or all of the 5 Ps to claim your space and place in life, then I commend you. This Endoboss journey may be tough, but you are tougher and have everything inside of you to be successful on this journey. But if those around you do not celebrate you and your efforts for your Endoboss journey, then please do not despair. I see far too many women give all of themselves and not be appreciated, and that can make them very ill as they give more and more to try and please and appease people that, like the Mr. and Mr. Angry types, will never be happy. Never. No matter how hard you try. But it's equally not your responsibility to make them happy. And I'm going to repeat that because it's important. It's not your responsibility. It's their responsibility. Your responsibility is making you happy and making you healthy. So try and explore the idea of imagining being around people that celebrate you and your talents, because you do have plenty talents. The first and main one is how good you are, how good your body is at identifying what makes you ill. Produce, products, property, people and past. These are the 5 Ps that need to be looked at. But of course the last 2 are the most impactful to pain relief and of course at the same time the most challenging. Hence why this podcast, hence why I focus on this more and more in my business. Your body is already really good at detecting what it is not aligned or right for you at your core. As you work your way through identifying, correcting, realigning the full 5 Ps in your life and your body so that you can put endometriosis into remission for good. Unfortunately, though, many women may resist or not think of looking at the people in their lives and their past. However, I ask you to gently explore your inner thoughts and feelings about your family of origin and tap into your younger versions of yourself to tune in and feel the hurts of the heart and any perceived injustices. By feeling them, ironically, they will be released and let go. I always say that I'm never here to judge or condemn anyone's parents. I do like to think, naively perhaps, that everyone's parents did the best they could with the information they had, although I appreciate there are some deeply unpleasant folk who had children they did not want to have, like my mother. So gently through your journaling and also with perhaps a sensitive therapist or counsellor or indeed an Endoboss coach, take the time to explore your old beliefs, your feelings, your emotions, your thoughts that you were brought up with, and gently question how they fit into your life now as you make this transformative journey. Just as our mobile phones regularly have to have new updates, which I admit to finding a little inconvenient and irritating sometimes, our own background operating systems, the wiring that we had growing up, may need an upgrade regularly. When you are ready to truly heal, that's when it becomes the time to show up for ourselves and others in the world differently. Becoming a doormat was not a conscious choice growing up, but one for me was of fitting into a model of the family and relationships that I was in and tried hard to be accepted in. But ultimately, all of that misdirected energy and effort outwards would make me very, very ill. It would make me miserable. It would make me question if life was worth living at times. And of course, it would increase endometriosis in my body and cause it to scream out in pain. It was only when I got out my pen, started to document and record and pay attention to what was happening in my body, mind and emotions, stained the paper with ink and of course tears at times, that I realised it was time for real lasting change. And I'm still a living testament to that amongst the hundreds, if not tens of thousands of other women now who are fully fledged endobosses. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're still experiencing pelvic pain, know that it's time for real, deep and meaningful change, and know that you have all that it takes to make that change. If you're struggling on your own, then do reach out and try one of our online self-study 21-day challenge programs. It's a great starting place and it allows you to really tune in slowly and safely to what's happening inside, emotionally. I promise that they will empower you in ways you never could imagine and fast-track you on the Endoboss journey. And if you're lucky, you may get even early physical improvements too. I like to say we all seek change and fear change in equal measure. But please try not to fear the change that you seek and try to embrace it. Have faith in your body's incredible ability to heal itself once you remove all that is poisonous. Make sure to listen to the various parts of you that may need more support and information. It's time to stop being a doormat to others, as it will slowly seep the joy from your soul. It's time to lift up the mat off the floor and stop others from wiping their feet on you. And make a commitment to change that from today onwards. I vowed years ago to shake off the doormat identity that I had clung on to me like a shadow and embrace the strength within me that had been lying dormant and fearful for far too long. So now is your time. Harvey Fierstein said, "Never be bullied into silence. Never allow yourself to be made a victim. Accept no one's definition of you and your life. Define yourself." So start by taking small, tiny, incy steps, by just noticing in your journal as you write every morning, Who is taking advantage of you, your time? And who, again, never makes you feel seen or noticed or appreciated? Notice who never says thank you for all of your wonderful efforts. Notice the more vulnerable parts of you that are craving recognition. There's an old saying, babies cry for it and grown men die for it. Recognition. It is a healthy, normal and natural desire to seek acknowledgement and recognition from those around you in your life. And if you're not getting it, then it's time to explore old stories, beliefs and ideals and realise that they are in need of updating. For you are worth it. You will become a doormat no more, but a force to be reckoned with in the theatre of your existence and have a body that thanks you for being the one to stand up for itself and yourself. One fun, small change you may wish to experiment with, even now and moving forward, is swapping any future requests to another person. For example, try swapping the word could to the word would. For example, please would you do XYZ rather than please could you. It's a very small change, but actually allows you to, that one word can start to make a difference in how you show up for yourself with others. It's more of an assertive rather than a wishy-washy could you, when they could say, yeah, well, I could, but I'm not going to. By asking, please, would you, you're making a statement for yourself. A slight shift in a polite assertiveness helps to gently turn the tide from being a people pleaser to a personal protector. Life is about that gentle ebb and flow of give and take, about appreciation and gratitude, about becoming more comfortable with the parts of you that are aching inside to come out and explore the elements of the world and, of course, your place in it. With a passion and a purpose, with a place at the table of life, with a pain-free pelvis and a peaceful heart, and a strong, powerful and empowering voice of an endoboss who is ready to change the world one woman at a time. So make sure to join our endoboss family soon if you haven't already done so, and to your health.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with Wendy K Laidlaw. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number one. The world needs a healthy you.